Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you Gonzo versus Sualtraz in the Community Patch Tournament. This is a Swiss style tournament based on the Community Balance Patch mod that you can find on the Steam Workshop, so make sure you go check that out. But today we are seeing Sainte-Mère-Église, and on the Allied side, Gonzo is going to be using the 4th Armoured, and on the Axis side, Sualtraz is using the Panzer Lehr. Now in the standard base game, I would say that the 4th Armoured has a huge advantage versus the Panzer Lehr, especially in the early game, but it is not so much the case in the Community Balance Patch mod, since there have been a lot of changes to the 4th Armoured. So let's go through a few of those changes. Bantams, Stuarts and Hellcats have all been increased in price, so they are not as good value for money. On top of that, all of the rifles, the 20-point infantry squads, have been removed from Phase A. So you no longer get decent value for money out of your units in the early game, because where you were previously only paying 20 points per infantry squad, now you're forced to pay about 40 points, I believe, for armoured rifles or armoured LMG rifles. So a big change, and that leaves you less extra points to spend on things like Hellcats, the M4 Abrams, Bantams, all that other stuff. So that is a big change, especially to the economy in general, that the 4th Armoured rely on. Talking of economy, Phase C, you can see that their income has been reduced from 130 to 125, so another hit to the 4th Armoured. On top of that, the armoured rifles have been moved around quite a bit, so they do get less of them per pack, and they've had one of the packs of armoured rifles removed from Phase B, but they've added packs to Phase C and also added some rifles in Phase C. So infantry availability in the late game is actually pretty decent for the 4th, but I think the idea of the Community Balance Patch mod is to kind of spread their power over all phases, as opposed to them being super strong early and just winning the game outright. On the side of the Panzer Lehr, the only change actually so far is their economy. You can see that they now have 70 points in Phase A, 110 points per minute in Phase B, and 140 points per minute in Phase C. This definitely helps them ramp a lot better into the late game, especially through Phase B, where previously you would continue to struggle, especially if you had a bad early game, whereas now you're much more likely to recover a little. Let's have a look at some of the units going down anyway. On the side of Gonzo, we can see that Abrams has made it onto the field in his M4. He's going to be accompanied by a couple of Jeeps with recon. There's going to be an M3A1 half-track that's going to come in with armoured LMG rifles and a command. You can tell that it's armoured LMG rifles because the M3A1 is the 50 cal half-track, and armoured rifles come in an M3 half-track. For the town, it's going to be armoured LMG rifles, there's going to be some cavalry scouts, and some command. And on the bottom side, you can see there's another M3A1 half-track with some more cavalry scouts. So significantly less units than we are used to seeing at the start for the 4th Armoured. Over on the side of the Panzer Lehr, we can see a Panzer Grenadier. There's going to be a Pack 38 and also some command. On the main road, we see Panzer Grens, command 2341, which is the recon armoured car. Then we've got a 250-10 with Panzerschreck and another Pack 38. On the bottom side, it's going to be a 250-10 and some Panzergrens in their half-track. So, looks like both players a lot more even in their initial start. Whereas before, you might have seen Gonzo with almost twice as many 20-point rifle units in the game than you do now. But nice job by the 2341, going to be taking out one of the units of cavalry scouts. M3A1 half-track drops off the armoured LMG rifles. And this isn't really very strong for Gonzo. These armoured LMG rifles don't deal well at close range. They only have like the 4 HE on the M1 Garand. So things like Panzergrens can actually beat them, and that is a big problem for Gonzo. Now what Gonzo's going to be doing is bringing in an M8 cavalry. He's going to be using that to counter the armoured vehicles of Sualtraz. So, for example, the 251 and the 2341. And if he can kill off those units, then his infantry may be having a bit of a better time, because currently they are being forced back quite significantly. On the top side, Pak 38 does pop one of the half-tracks. M4 is now going to be engaging the Panzergrens. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, not too much happening just yet. Both players just unloading their units and backing off. Armor leader does go down as the armored LMG rifles continue to retreat. Gonzo really waiting on the M8 cavalry to arrive. Meanwhile, M4 is still doing a good job against the half-track and these Panzergrens. The amount of machine guns here is actually quite ridiculous. The 230 cals on the Jeeps, and then the 230 cals on the M4 itself, and the 50 cal just completely annihilated that Panzergren unit. Now, since there haven't been any other changes to the Panzer Lehr, they still do suffer for infantry availability in the early games, so Sualtraz will have to be careful. I like that he's bringing in more Pak 38s though. Having the 6 AT strategy with the Panzer Lehr is actually pretty strong still, and I can imagine it's even stronger against the 4th Armoured now because they have so many half-tracks. So I'm hoping to see even more come in, but it's unlikely actually, since we do have the Panzerschrecks in play, and those Panzerschrecks will be taking up a slot in his AT tab, and thus he won't have as many Pak 38s to play with. Ammo storage here actually onto the M8 cavalry does cause some issue there briefly. The 2341 almost getting the better of the M8 cavalry. The armoured LMG rifles, can they take out this Pak 38? Looks like they will, but the 2341 rushes down the M8 cavalry and kills it. Very nice indeed. The grenades are coming over though from the armoured LMG rifles, and they are going to get the kill. The 2341 is technically open top, so a grenade popped in the top there does get the job done. Very careless move from Sualtraz. I like the initial rush, but I'm not entirely sure why he stopped. He should have kept going, especially with those grenades landing on his head. Armoured leader just trying to hold the ground, but 3 HE to its name is not very much. Recon have bumped into the Panzergrenführer with the help of the armoured LMG rifles. We might see them go down, but the Panzergrenführer end up smoking themselves off, but only on one side. That prevents the armoured LMG rifles from firing on them, but not the Jeep 30 cals, and the Jeep 30 cals do their job. Now these machine guns on the Jeeps can still be effective if you keep them out of the 400 meter range of, say, the Panzergrens. But the armoured LMG rifles finishing off the Pak 38, M4 started that by making it fall back. So currently 51% territory for Gonzo as he continues to control the top side with Abrams. But the mid is not looking too great. The M3A1 here has just been driver wounded, and the 250-10 has a good opportunity to kill that off. It is a 2-star 250-10, so we'll hit a number of times, I'm sure. Just got to actually get the kill. So 50 cal half track out the way, nicely done. Panzergrens are moving up aggressively, but they've actually ran out of MP40 ammunition, so they won't be very effective in close range combat at all. That's 2 HE versus 3 HE. This Puma though, finding shots onto the armoured LMG rifle, nicely done. If he can get up close to Abrams, it might even be able to kill Abrams. There's also the Pak 38 coming through the tree line here, but with the recon in place, Abrams is going to spot that. And that's going to be a very dead AT gun, since it did miss its first shot. Puma tries to take advantage of Abrams being distracted. Does get the bounce off the front armor. It does have technically 12 AP versus that 10 front armor, but that's still a pretty low chance to penetrate. So that's 2 shots that he's bounced now. And the Puma's going to go down. Abrams wins the day. These Panzergrens, they have been forced back. The Panzergrenführer actually goes down as they leave their building, and the cavalry scouts are starting to get the better of these units with their grease guns. Now this is not something you see very often, but Gonzo relying on these cavalry scouts for close combat, since they do have 10 HE at the 100 meter range. They also have the bazooka that is good for cleaning up units like this 250-10. That's if they can actually hit the mark. But so far, it looks like Gonzo's made a little bit of a comeback in the town, since Sualtraz's lack of infantry in the early game is really starting to affect his play. You can't really throw away the Panzergrenz like he has been, because you get into a position where, regardless of the lack of infantry availability of your opponent, they're still going to have more than you, because Panzer Lehr arguably has the least amount of infantry availability in the early game. So armoured energy rifle still holding at the bottom. Looks like Sualtraz is going to try and make a little bit of a move down here. We can see that 250-10 does come forwards. Cavalry scouts managed to take care of that. This 2-3-4-1's going to have to do a runner, but will find the shot onto the Jeep here, quite likely. The M4 though, ready to cover that off as the 2-3-4 comes into line of sight. Bit of a careless move again from Sualtraz. I think he was just trying to make a play behind the lines, but didn't really appreciate that the M4 could just turn around and shoot his 2-3-4-1 there. Nice kill though from the Puma. Does kill off one of the Hellcats. That's 120 points down the drain for Gonzo. The Panzergrenz also getting the better of the cavalry scouts here with that nice range that allows them to use the MG42s. Now in orchards, Panzergrenz are absolutely deadly because they do have the ability to use the MG42. In this case though, Panzergrenz are going to be engaging armoured energy rifles at closer range. But because the armoured energy rifles are actually in heavy cover and the Panzergrenz are not, the armoured energy rifles could still win. WC-52 is also going to try and get involved, but with the MG42s getting on target of that, that goes down. Panzerschreck does die trying to approach the M3A1 half-track. That's going to be now down to the 250-10 to clean up. And if that M3A1 half-track goes down, then this half-track can help with the armoured energy rifles. So that's not too bad. There may be some room to be made on the bottom side for Sualtraz. But meanwhile on the top side, even with the Hellcat gone down, Abrams is still hanging about. And it's going to be difficult for him to get rid of these armoured vehicles without more Pack 38 availability, and since he only had 3 and they're all dead, he doesn't have any more until phase B. So he's kind of in a bit of a pickle because of that. I do really like the 6AT strategy with the Panzer Lehr. It does allow you to stabilize until you reach phase B, and in this community balance patch mod, I think it will be even more powerful, that 6AT strat, because you move into a stronger phase B than you did before. So far, Sualtraz getting pushed back by Gonzo's infantry and Abrams. So just finding the kills onto the Panzergrenz allows him to break down the rest of the defences that Sualtraz has. Since the infantry can kill off the Pack 38s for him and all that good stuff. So what can Sualtraz do? Well, he's going to have to hope that in phase B he can buy in a strong enough tank that can take on the Hellcat and the M4. Like, that's the only way I would see him going about it. I am surprised though to see him buy in another Puma, because since it's only like 40 seconds until phase B when he bought that in, I think I'd rather have saved that and put it towards something a bit better. But he does find the kill onto the Hellcat. Really good job there with the Puma on the top side, but the units on the bottom have actually been surrounded. This weapon jammed M3 half-track made a move, encircled these units, and the front line's completely collapsed. That's a +4 for Gonzo. Puma's going to be taking a shot at Abrams at max range though, very unlikely to penetrate. I think it's about like the 2% chance when it's matched 10 AP to 10 armor. 250-10 even taking out this half-track. I was going to say wasn't going to affect the front line, but it looks like it is. That little bubble might just bring things back slightly and prevent that from being a +4 for now. Panzergrenz are moving into this orchard. That is going to put them in line of sight of the 50 cal. Panzergrenz not going to be able to get within the 150 meter range, so the 50 cal might get the kill here onto the squad, and that's another infantry squad carelessly microed, putting Gonzo in an even stronger position. And now we're in phase B. Gonzo brings in the M4A176, but what is Sualtraz going to bring in? More Pumas. It's not good. It might help him break through on the bottom side, sure, but with the M4A176 on its way, that won't be for long. And there's also now an M1 gun in position, that will be hitting these half-tracks, so the Pumas won't last much better either. I find the choice of Pumas really bemusing, honestly. Something like this AT gun would have been a much better choice for the top side, where he can then play around with the Puma but cover it with the Pak-40 from the other side. These Pumas, they're just going to try and make a move on this bottom area. They've got to kill off these half-tracks, otherwise he won't make any ground, so that's pretty important. But by doing so, he's going to leave himself in line of sight of the M1 gun, and the M1 gun might find a kill here if he's not too careful. Like, that is second shot on target material. It actually doesn't hit this time around. But you can see that the M4A176 is getting involved. This is a scary position for these Pumas to be in. Good kills onto the half-track and the infantry, but he's got to do a lot better than that if he wants to find the victory here. There's actually a potential really nice flanking position for the Pak-40, because it can shoot Abrams as it tries to approach the Puma, for example. Pak-40 does take out the half-track. Will it take out Abrams? If it can take out Abrams, that is perfect. But don't let the Puma die. Nice! M4 goes down. There is a decent chance for Sualtraz to make a bit of a comeback on that top side now, because all of this infantry doesn't have AT, so something like a Puma can push very aggressively. It's just a matter of whether or not Sualtraz feels comfortable enough doing that, because it is closed top as well. It's not an open top vehicle, so armoured energy rifles can't even use their grenades. So this is fantastic for the Puma, and it looks like Gonzo knows it. He's going to be moving the M4A176 in position to reply. Meanwhile, on the bottom side, looks like this Puma's broken through. One armoured LMG rifle in the way. M1 gun, though, is going to take out the spear troop in that half-track before they unload, and we're going to see some more infantry arrive now. Now, infantry is going to be what he needs if he wants to sort of secure this front line. Is the Puma going to be able to take out the M4A176? It's currently on return fire. This is really smart from Sualtraz. The closer it gets, the more likely it is to hit. But he misses, and the M4A176 gets the shot on target. That is a 6 base accuracy for you compared to the 5 base accuracy of the Puma. Makes up for the fact that the Puma has the extra veterancy, that little bit extra accuracy. And while the M1 gun takes out the 258, looks like this 258 going to be fire positioning next to the M1 gun. Will that actually pin it down? I feel like it's a little bit far away. No, it does manage to do so. Nicely done. So now he just needs to actually target it directly, but he doesn't know where it is, and it's on return fire. Gonzo's going to let it aim, maybe recover some morale, and then he'll fire. The Puma was looking for the shot onto the armoured LMG rifle, but that's not going to happen. I wonder what killed... Oh no, the Puma. It went down to the M4A176. Yep, Gonzo managed to clean that up. So what was previously a very precarious topside for Gonzo is now not. And with these armoured LMG rifles getting on top of the Pak-40, that's going to take a lot of damage. And he doesn't really have a unit that can pick that up and move it. M1 gun that stayed on return fire ends up taking out the 258. Very sloppy. Should have at least had the 258 guessing where that M1 gun was and continuing the fire position. But it looks like with these M4A176s on the field, it's not getting any better for Sualtraz. And as the points continue to rack up, it is only 4 minutes and 40 seconds until Gonzo finds victory. Bombing strike does come down from the P-38 Lightning. That's the 15 HE power bombs. Half track goes down. Panzer guns surely soon to follow, especially as they get into 100 meter range. That's going to be a surrender. Another Panzergren squad gone. Sualtraz in a really tough position now. Pak-40 might be able to claim a kill onto the M4A1, but the armoured LMG rifles are in the perfect position to start pinning that down. So if this Pak-40 misses, it's unlikely to have another shot. Yep, it dies. It does actually hit the mark, but it bounced off the front arm of the M4A1 because it saw it coming due to the infantry there. And now we see the Puma. That was bombed previously. It's going to look for the shot onto the M4A176, but Sualtraz, before that happens, is going to surrender. And after 16 minutes, Gonzo is victorious. His relentless, aggressive style still carrying him through. And great job by Gonzo to secure that victory. Just took so much ground that he had 1,800 points in the lead. And regardless of the fact that, you know, Panzer Lehr could go into phase C and bring out a bunch of good stuff, I don't think he would have made back the points in time, especially with Gonzo, you know, causing resistance. So there we go. It is interesting, though, to see the changes to the 4th Armoured in play, especially the fact that they have to rely so much on the half-tracks now early on, rather than the cheap infantry squads accompanied by things like Hellcats and Abrams. So, yeah, you're going to see, in this balance patch at least, you're going to see a lot less Hellcats early, because you just won't be able to afford them. Things like the B-26B Marauders as well will be a lot less common because they're just too expensive for the rest of the units that you have to buy in. But Abrams definitely carried that top side for a long time until it got popped by the Pak 40. Actually quite nice positioning in the end from that Pak 40, allowed it to get the shot. This M1 gun though from Gonzo certainly cleaned house. 2 258s going down and a 250-10. Great micro with the return fire. And then the M4A1's cleaning up those Pumas. I am surprised that we didn't see anything greater than a Puma from the Panzer Lehr, like in terms of like armor. That was kind of odd in my opinion, but there we go. They still pulled their weight with a double kill onto the Hellcats there. That's nice. And then the Pak 40 killing Abrams. So plenty of like expensive units going down, and the 2341 killing the M8 cavalry was great, but I felt like the 2341 was then like mismicroed afterwards. Like having the grenades thrown onto it was not good. But yeah, nice try from Sualtraz. Gonzo got the better of him in the end though. And that is it. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this game. Nice look into the 4th Armoured in this mod. That's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.